on Arirang News. Starting today, people in South Korea are no longer required to wear masks on subways and buses with the lifting of the indoor mask mandate on public transport. But many still seem reluctant to take their masks off. South Korea and the United States kick off their first large-scale amphibious landing exercise in 5 years, with U.S. strategic bombers taking part in joint air drills. This comes on the same day as Pyongyang fires a suspected ballistic missile into the East Sea. South Korea's monthly outbound shipments of cars hit an all-time high in February on the back of eco-friendly vehicles. Domestic sales and production also record double-digit growth. Good evening. It's 9 p.m. here in South Korea. Thank you for joining us on Arirang News. Starting today, people in the country are no longer required to wear masks on subways and buses with the lifting of the indoor mask mandate on public transportation. But still, many seem to prefer having the mask on regardless of the policy change. Kim Jung-sil starts our coverage tonight.
Starting March 20th, people in South Korea can ride trains or buses without having to worry about masks. The government announced last Wednesday that it will now leave it to people to decide for themselves whether to wear a mask when using public transport. We went to find out what people in South Korea decided to do on the first day of these more relaxed rules.
I'm at Sadang Station on subway line number 4, and as you can see behind me, the majority of the passengers are still wearing masks.
But there were a few people who didn't wear a mask.
It's not that I'm not worried about COVID-19, but now that everyone's gotten it and I've had it once before, I figured it would be okay to take my mask off at this point.
For about 2 years and 5 months, people in South Korea had to wear a mask when using public transport, so some passengers said they are used to wearing it. Most of the people at this bus stop were also wearing masks.
I'm wearing the mask because it's not that uncomfortable anymore, but starting today, I'll also take my mask off.
Trains and buses aren't the only places people can now go without wearing masks. On Wednesday, the government also said that masks won't be required in specific types of pharmacies, the ones located inside supermarkets or stations. Before, people could be shopping right nearby, but then put their masks back on when using the pharmacy in those places. The government gave two main reasons for its decision. One is that even after the first stage of the indoor mask mandate was lifted back at the end of January, which allowed people to go to most indoor places without masks, the number of COVID-19 cases has been dropping. Another is that many people in South Korea were still wearing masks even without a mandate. Only a few places remain that require masks: regular pharmacies, hospitals, and care facilities. South Korean health officials are likely to consider lifting the mask mandate in all places only after the World Health Organization announces that COVID-19 is no longer a global emergency. Kim Jung-sil, Arirang News.
Following the South Korea-Japan summit last week, Seoul's presidential office and the cabinet accelerate proceedings with follow-up measures to improve bilateral ties. Our top office correspondent Kim Do-yeon tells us more.
Following his visit to Tokyo last week, South Korean President Yoon Suk-yeol is gearing up to carry out follow-up measures on boosting bilateral exchanges with Japan.
President Yoon Suk-yeol asked each ministry to make every effort to take follow-up measures so that the public can feel the improvement in Korea-Japan relations and cooperation at today's meeting of senior secretaries.
While specific details on the cooperation are yet to come, some have been announced. There will be a visit by ruling People Power Party National Assembly members to Japan on a, quote, big scale. The spokesperson called for opposition lawmakers to join. An official at the top office said more civilian exchanges are on the way and the cooperation will likely focus on chips, batteries, and electric vehicle sectors. The official also said a big topic for the exchanges is future generations. Also for young people, according to the official, a new scholarship program is in the works for Korean students going to study in Japan and vice versa through funds incurred from Korean and Japanese firms. In addition, the Ministry of Culture, Sports and Tourism announced on Monday that there will be 37 Japanese high school students coming to South Korea for a class trip. The students are expected to visit Seoul and Jeonju, and Culture Minister Park Bo-gyun said while it's a small start, it's the beginning of a future-oriented bilateral relationship. The order by President Yoon came a day after the presidential office said the trip was a, quote, big success, considering that it took a step toward normalizing the bilateral relationship and put Seoul in the driving seat in terms of its relations with Japan, and has also increased its standing in the global community. Kim Do-yeon, Arirang News.
South Korean President Yoon has been invited to the Group of 7 summit set to take place in the Japanese city of Hiroshima this May. Japan's Kyodo news agency reported on Monday afternoon that Prime Minister Fumio Kishida announced the news to reporters in New Delhi, where he is set to meet his Indian counterpart Narendra Modi. Kishida added that Brazil and Vietnam are also among the countries invited. This year's G7 summit will kick off on May 19th. North Korea's Kim Jong-un reiterates once again his nuclear threat as he reportedly oversees a training aimed at improving the regime's tactical nuclear counterattack skills. Also spotted was his young daughter. Our Kim Hyun-sung reports.
North Korean leader Kim Jong-un called for the regime to stand fully ready with nuclear attacks to deter war in a remark made during a military drill over the weekend. The North state-led Korean Central News Agency reported Monday morning that North Korean troops trained to improve their nuclear attack skills for 2 days. Kim Jong-un oversaw the training and again brought his daughter Kim Ju-ae along, who seems to be Kim Jong-un's protege. Yang Mu-jin, professor at the University of North Korean Studies, said that Kim's direct supervision is intended to flaunt his leadership for a strong nuclear-armed army, and he brought his daughter along to show that their nuclear power will be handed down the generations. This comes in the middle of Freedom Shield, the 11-day-long Seoul-Washington joint drill. Sunday marked the 7th day of the war games, and the U.S. once again deployed its nuclear-capable B-1B heavy bombers and F-16 fighters to South Korea for a joint air drill over the East Sea. Before these American aircraft arrived in Korea, they also conducted joint drills with Japan as well. North Korea lately has been reacting sensitively to the strengthened trilateral cooperation between South Korea, the U.S., and Japan. Seeing this as a threat, it's been ramping up its weapons test. And North Korea on Sunday morning fired another short-range ballistic missile off toward the East Sea. KCNA said that the missile achieved its target by flying 800 kilometers to blow up 800 meters above sea level. Analysts from the released photos suggest that the launched missile to be KN-23B. First revealed in 2020, the KN-23B is an upgrade from the KN-23. It's refined to travel farther and to carry more, possibly a nuclear warhead. Professor Yang Uk from the Asan Research Institute mentioned that it's noteworthy that North Korea tested the missile to explode in mid-air. He said that weapons that blow up in air are typically used for attacking populated cities because such attacks can destroy large areas at once. So North Korea's latest weapons test would appear to be a warning that it's capable of attacking a city. Kim Hyun-sung, Arirang News.
Meanwhile, the international community was quick to respond to North Korea's firing of a short-range ballistic missile over the weekend. The Group of 7 pointed the finger at Beijing and Moscow for inaction at the UN Security Council. Our Bae-eun-ji has more.
Foreign ministers of the G7 nations, including the US, the UK, and Japan and the EU, condemned yet another missile launch by North Korea in the strongest terms, saying it undermines regional and international peace and security. In a statement released by the U.S. State Department on Sunday local time, the foreign ministers said they deeply regret inaction by the UN Security Council because of, quote, obstruction by some members. Although not named, the statement apparently referred to China and Russia, who have blocked recent efforts to impose tougher sanctions on North Korea. They added that North Korea's reckless behavior demands a swift and unified response from the international community, and called on all UN member states to fully implement all UN Security Council resolutions. Following Sunday's missile launch, the top nuclear envoys of South Korea, US, and Japan also condemned Pyongyang's latest provocation and discussed their coordinated responses. Seoul's foreign ministry said Kim Gun, the special representative for Korean Peninsula Peace and Security Affairs, held phone talks with his US and Japanese counterparts, Sung Kim and Takehiro Funakoshi, where they called the North's actions a threat to peace and stability that clearly violates multiple UN Security Council resolutions. The three officials also agreed to build a firm and unified response against the North's provocations at the upcoming UN Security Council's meeting in New York on Monday. 배은지, Arirang News.
Chinese President Xi Jinping arrives in Moscow for talks with Russian President Vladimir Putin. His first visit since Russia invaded Ukraine comes at a pivotal moment where geopolitical tensions are growing over a range of issues. Song Yoo-jin with the details.
Chinese President Xi Jinping starts his three-day visit to Russia on Monday to meet Vladimir Putin. This marks Xi's first visit to Russia in 4 years and his first foreign trip since starting an unprecedented third term this month. Both leaders expressed high hopes ahead of their talks, while at the same time sharpening their criticism against the United States and the West in what experts say is a show of Beijing-Moscow solidarity.
That is designed to show the United States in particular that these two countries are aligned, that they have this deep partnership, and that they stand in opposition to the United States, that they are united in pushing back against U.S. and Western influence.
Calling his visit to Russia as a journey of friendship, cooperation, and peace, President Xi said in a signed article published by Russian media outlets that the world is confronted with security challenges, hegemony, domination, and bullying. He added that the international community has recognized that no country is superior to others and no single country should dictate the international order, an expression seemingly targeting the U.S.-led global order. Similarly, in an article on China's state-run People's Daily, Putin described Xi as a good old friend. The Russian leader then went on to slam the West for sticking to its obsolete dogma and vanishing dominance, and evaluated that the U.S.'s dictation is getting fiercer and more aggressive, dismantling international security and cooperation. Putin also urged the lifting of unilateral sanctions on Russia. According to the Kremlin, the two heads of state will hold an informal one-on-one on Monday afternoon. Their bilateral summit will take place on Tuesday. While the two sides will discuss a wide range of matters such as economic cooperation, topping the agenda will likely be the war in Ukraine. China's foreign ministry confirmed last Friday that the summit will work to urge peace and promote talks, something Ukraine and its allies are skeptical about. For one, U.S. and NATO recently accused China of considering supplying arms to Russia, a claim Beijing has denied. Song Yoo-jin, Arirang News.
Now, turning to the economy, South Korea's monthly car exports jumped to an all-time high in February, with higher demand for eco-friendly cars driving the force. For details, here's our Lee Soo-jin.
The South Korean auto industry saw record high monthly exports in February. Data from the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy on Monday shows that outbound shipments of cars last month came to $5.6 billion. That's up around 47% from a year earlier. A total of more than 220,000 cars were exported, up almost 35% on year. The rise was mainly driven by the high demand for eco-friendly cars. Exports of eco-friendly cars rose nearly 62%, surpassing 60,000 units for the first time ever, with all types of environmentally friendly cars proving popular. The dollar value of these vehicle exports reached a record $2.02 billion, up 83.4%. The export value of eco-friendly cars has been on an upward trend since August last year, accounting for almost 40% of total car exports. The number of cars produced domestically also surged 30.2% on year to more than 343,000 units with the improvement in chip supplies. South Korean auto giants Hyundai Motor and Kia posted strong results thanks to the global demand for eco-friendly cars. Exports of Hyundai's cars surged nearly 35% to more than 94,000 units, and Kia's nearly 58% to more than 96,000 units last month. Eco-friendly vehicles are also gaining popularity in Korea. Domestic eco-friendly car sales rose around 32% compared to a year earlier, making up 30.3% of overall domestic car sales. Meanwhile, exports of auto parts last month also jumped 13.3% as outbound shipments to major markets such as North America and the European Union rose. Exports of auto parts and cars combined came to $7.6 billion, making them the nation's top export product last month. 이수진, Arirang News.
The number of South Koreans aged 15 to 29 who have decided to take a break from work or from job seeking hit a record high in February. According to Statistics Korea, 497,000 people were economically inactive by choice, posting an all-time high since relevant data was first compiled in 2003. The economically inactive population normally includes those in pursuit of education or those in child rearing or those rendered unable to work. However, the latest group of the almost 500,000 people are reportedly taking a break from work obligations and related pursuits because they want to. In a bid to better calm market jitters, Swiss banking giant UBS has sealed a deal to take over ailing lender Credit Suisse for more than $3 billion. Our Choi Min-jung has details.
Credit Suisse has been rescued by rival bank UBS in a government-supported deal. Swiss banking giant UBS on Sunday agreed to buy Credit Suisse for 3 billion Swiss francs, which is around $3.25 billion.
Bringing UBS and Credit Suisse together will build on the best skills available in the Swiss financial centre and enhance the combined organisation's ability to serve our clients and deepen our best-in-class capabilities.
We are happy to have a solution that I am convinced brings sustainable stability and security for our clients, employees, the financial markets and Switzerland.
The Swiss National Bank pledged a loan of up to 100 billion Swiss francs, or $108 billion, to support the takeover. The country's finance minister also announced that the government will grant UBS a guarantee worth 9 billion Swiss francs in order to reduce any risks for the bank.
You have to imagine this is like insurance, which only takes effect should there be any losses. First, UBS would cover those losses, and then in a second phase, the government.
The takeover comes in a bid to halt the banking crisis that has been sparked by the collapse of US-based Silicon Valley Bank and Signature Bank earlier this month. Credit Suisse has had issues with investor confidence for some years on the back of a number of scandals and financial missteps, and saw its share price drop to a low last week not seen since the onset of COVID-19.
The takeover of Credit Suisse by UBS is the best solution for restoring the confidence that has been lacking in financial markets recently.
The deal was welcomed by U.S. Treasury Secretary Janet Yellen and Federal Reserve Chair Jerome Powell. The Bank of England also said it welcomes the measures taken by Swiss authorities to support financial stability. Under the deal, Credit Suisse shareholders will receive 1 UBS share for every 22.48 Credit Suisse shares they hold. Choi Min-jung, Arirang News.
Brides in South Korea are now more likely to be in their early 40s than in their early 20s. According to the Korean Statistical Information Service, the number of marriages, including women aged between 40 and 44 last year, stood at 10,949. Now, this number is about 800 higher than the number of marriages for women aged between 20 and 24. This phenomenon reportedly started in 2021. It's also being fueled by a drop in population of women in their 20s and changing perceptions here about marriage itself. Gwanghwamun Square in downtown Seoul will be lit up to promote South Korea's bid to bring the World Expo 2030 to Busan. The Busan Expo Bidding Committee said Monday that starting next Thursday until April 3rd, media arts and light sculptures symbolizing the expo will be on display at Gwanghwamun Square. They'll be installed ahead of on-site evaluation by an inspection team from the Bureau International de-Expositions that's scheduled for early April. Also, the country's top conglomerates, including Samsung, Hyundai, and SK, plan to hold events and exhibitions for the expo. K-pop girl group Twice has hit a new career high by reaching number 2 on the US Billboard 200 chart. According to Billboard, on Sunday, the group's 12th EP, Ready to Be, was released on March 10th and earned a total of 153,000 equivalent album units during the week ending on March 16th. This marks the biggest week ever achieved by a K-pop girl group. The Billboard 200 ranks the most popular albums of the week in the United States, measured by equivalent album units, a measurement to define the consumption of music that equals the purchase of one album copy, comprising of physical album sales and other digital sales records. Honeybees are disappearing. The rapid drop in the number of bees due to climate change, pests, and the use of pesticides has become a challenge for farmers. As a solution, a team of domestic researchers has developed a new kind of smart beehive. Yoon reports.
The recent decline in honeybees has harmed farmers that use the bees for pollination. This strawberry farmer has resorted to using different types of bees, but the outcome hasn't been very fruitful.
A lot of bees have died this year. I'm worried more will die in the coming years. We need to come up with a solution.
Honeybees in this greenhouse nearby seem to be greater in number and much more active. What's inside is a smart beehive. On the outside, it looks like any other hive, but there's a special device inside. This sensor controls the environment on the inside, keeping the temperature at 30 degrees Celsius and the humidity at 60%. This technology allows farmers to closely monitor the hives and quickly respond if there is a problem.
The rate of bees spawning is good. I think it will continue until the end of April when strawberry planting season ends.
The smart beehive has been shown to give honeybees a longer lifespan, which in turn has increased production of tomatoes and strawberries. For farmers, this results in an earnings increase of 1 million won, roughly $770 per 1,000 square meters.
We hope to expand and distribute this technology to help beekeepers manage an environment where the bees are healthier and produce honey more effectively.
The Rural Development Administration plans to patent the technology behind the smart beehive and launch pilot projects by distributing the smart hives to beekeepers in 8 locations throughout the country this year. Yoon, Arirang News.
Mild conditions will persist across the nation for this week. Daytime conditions will be especially warm with highs surpassing 20 degrees for most regions. Seoul will see highs of 21 degrees for the daytime, which is about 8 degrees higher than the seasonal norms. For places like Uiseong, there will be a dramatic fluctuation with lows starting off at only 2 degrees and highs jumping to 23. With the rise in temperatures, dust concentrations will soar as well. Much of South Korea will be under poor air quality. Western regions, including the Seoul metropolitan area and Chungcheongdo and Jeollabuk-do provinces, will see air quality standing in the bad category for the entire day. The surrounding regions, such as Gangwon-do province, will also see high levels of fine dust for the morning hours. Tomorrow, Seoul and Daejeon will be starting off at 5 degrees. Highs in Seoul will get up to 21 degrees. Gwangju, Daegu, and Gyeongju will be topping out at 22 degrees. And southern parts of the country will see frequent showers for this week. That's all for now, and here are the weather conditions around the world.
That is all for tonight's newscast. Thank you for watching. Hope everyone has a great start of the week. Good night.
I'm live!
저를 도와주시는 분들이
저희와 함께 해주시는 세션분들
아무리 봐도 먹지 펜션 같은데 아니라고 아무도 안 하는 거고
좋아요.